Okay, welcome back to Ctrl+ART+Del, the podcast about being an artist, the art industry, and collecting art. I'm here with Richie Carter and Ken Yarus at their studio in Kalispell, Montana. It's a beautiful day. Today's episode is brought to you by the Heart of the West Art Show and Sale at Bozeman, Montana, August 11th through 13th at the Best Western Plus Grand Tree Inn. And then 3 weeks later in Coeur d'Alene at the Coeur d'Alene Resort, September 1st through 4th in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And thanks for being here, guys, and welcome back from your southern sojourn.
Thanks, Morgan. It's good to be back here. Being travel, I guess like most people leave somewhere for a vacation or get out of town, and they end up coming back to some place just thinking of how crappy it is that they live there. And the coolest thing about being here, which I kind of shouldn't say this out loud because then people are going to want to move here, but like
We've said that before.
Yeah, you just like drop it into the Flathead Valley, into the Mission Range, and Flathead Lake is so inspiring and incredible. Yeah, like you just, especially in the springtime. So as much as I do love the desert, it was really, I have no regrets about going there or staying a lot of time there. I could have gone another month. It was just like, man, why do people leave here?
Yeah, it's a little slice of heaven here. And there's lots of other great places too, but I agree, having a place to come back to that makes you ready to come home after vacation is really nice. Makes the sting of coming home from vacation a lot less sharp. And you guys were heading down to the Plein Air Convention, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what basically spurred on the whole thing. And originally I had planned to just do it by myself because Richie was going to go to Venice for some time. But the way it just worked out was that my gas would be cheaper, so I just convinced him to go. And
the truth comes out.
Yeah. No, but it just seemed like a more fun opportunity to get out, and like the idea of flying to Venice versus driving.
Venice Beach?
No, he was going to be flying to Venice, Italy, to go. Yeah,
Wow.
so then that kind of fell through. Price-wise, it's like we didn't really spend for a month on the road traveling, where people would say, "Oh man, how do you guys afford that?" It's like, we slept on the ground.
Yeah.
We don't pay rent. We ate burritos every day, and
PBR.
and a lot of people are. Yeah.
We're
That's
waiting for PBR sponsors because
Yeah,
we
for
are
real.
really putting in our.
How rad would that
Totally
be?
should.
Seriously.
Well, problem is
Sponsor
there's,
skiers, why not sponsor artists?
Yeah.
there's so many like cooler hipstery painters out there that would
Right.
like totally win over on that. But I don't know. I feel like it's worth a shot. If I just keep showing up with PBR, then one day they'll.
Well, they've changed a bit. They changed ownership recently within
Some
the last
Chinese
couple of
company,
years.
right?
Really?
Yeah. And
For real?
and at the risk of
For real?
at the risk of putting your sponsorship in jeopardy, I find that the recipe has changed, and I can't even stomach it anymore. But that's sad. Yeah, that's sad for me. Too much corn. I think they use corn as like a cheaper.
I've heard that something like that.
ingredient, but hey, if you can ignore that, more power to you.
It gets you drunk.
If you do just drink 8 of them, then you regret, or you don't really pay much attention to anything.
No,
But I usually only have 1 or 2 if I'm painting.
it's the hydrating beer.
Yeah, actually, that's good. I haven't seemed to have been hungover remotely, so maybe there is some secret to that. But I either way, like getting nice beer was just kind of under the budget. So we did try to buy some regional beers where we were, because it was cool to be in a place where you could get Colorado beer. Was way more
really
common,
good.
but in Utah, the regulations in that state kind of weird out the beer thing. That there's limits.
Could
So
never live there.
yeah, it was a little weird just to go to the sections of the store that sell beer, and there's all these signs everywhere. Like, Lord,
This is alcohol.
like, be careful.
It's barely alcohol, dude. 4.2%. It's the limit.
Yeah, so it was funny, but we spent a lot of time really more in Arizona, and so the Plein Air Convention was the real inspiration. I bought that ticket a long time ago, and to go to that convention because Bill Anton and Matt Smith were going to be there teaching, and that was probably the 2 most catalytic. Like, I don't know, they like really wanted reason to go. On top of the coolest thing that happened of it that I found out later was that Rusty Warner, who was one of my mentors and still is a mentor.
Local of the Plein
She's
Air
a local,
Valley.
yeah. So it's like they did this incredible show here at the Hockaday about the legacy of women painters in Glacier Park, and it caught the attention of the Plein Air organization, Eric Rhoads, and I guess was all a part of that stuff. So they got to go there and talk. So to be there, like at that convention where there's literally like a pile of us Flathead Valley people, including one of my just like people I look up to immensely, I could be there for her and just to be able to hang out with her because she's always so busy was like a real treat for me.
Awesome.
So,
And those guys teaching, what did that look like? Was it your ticket guaranteed you entry to a class, or is it kind of a bigger seminar sort of thing?
It's just a huge convention hall,
Right.
and it'd be like
exhibitors or
yeah. Well, you could bring your paintings,
okay.
and so like there was a big. I should have actually. I didn't realize how it would be organized. You just kind of like brought it and set a price tag up. Some people sold stuff, but like it was just other artists buying artist stuff. You know, it
Right.
wasn't really open to the public. It was, but like, it just I don't think it was advertised as like
It wasn't meant
come
to
to the
be,
art show.
right.
It's like, but they did. They had a bunch of like floor easels they set up and just huge long rows and like big hotel hallways, so people were just walking in and out of this resort and seeing all this art. And then the coolest thing, one of the cool things that made it seem different than anything else I've been to is like there was a trade show portion of it. So there was all of these art companies, like material makers that were there with their booths.
tools of the trade.
Similar, like it looked kind of like the convention floor at Coeur d'Alene. Like you just, or not, yeah, you just go into this like big room. And there was the same exact booth layout, basically, of little cubicles and these legendary companies with like awesome artists there demoing. I got to see Casey Baupaint, who's oh man, he's a New York City painter.
He's pretty.
He studied with Richard Schmidt, and he's insanely talented and very cool. Wearing leather in the desert and just being.
Sounds hot.
Yeah. I don't know how he did it, but
Stay inside.
he was inside mostly. But just to see him paint was really incredible. And they have their easel company was there, represented it, like designed it with Jeremy Lipke and a couple other just badass artists. And so
cool.
it looks like the MacBook of the
Right.
painting world.
Help from Joni Ive.
Yeah.
Joni Ive, he's the iPod. Original,
I think there was somebody involved. Well, maybe that's actually Brian Mark Taylor has an easel called the Strata. It's getting really famous, and he teamed up with somebody from Apple, but I don't know who.
Probably him.
But yeah, he had all the ties to the manufacturing world that could make this
Right.
crazy aluminum little easel thing work.
Right.
But this is got bells and whistles. This other one, and anyway, just to go and see that stuff. And I bought new brushes that was dire need of, and you could really just, unlike shopping online where.
Feel it, test it out.
Yeah, and as you know, the art store world here in Kalispell is like surprisingly deficient. Like Medford, Oregon, where I was living before this. I mean, there's more people there, but no real artists. Like just a couple. Like compared to here, there's I know like 10 like high level professional artists that like live around here.
Right.
And no art store.
Right.
So I don't know.
Probably because it's the amateurs that keep a art store in business, you know? Like,
yeah,
professionals know exactly what they want, they know where to get it, and they probably do it
It's
in
all
large
online.
chunks, ahead of long. And whereas, getting set up to do lessons or something like that, and that's where
an art store can become valuable.
I
Yeah,
think so. Yeah,
it was just so cool to be able to see and experiment with it. Like they had literally like a palettes out at some of these paint companies. They're like put the paint out and play with it and see how well white works with it, or if you want to change colors up and see like if you've never used this color before, like there's nothing like getting that hands-on feeling for the paint. And so that was a huge perk of going. But anyway, so I knew this Plein Air thing was going to be cool, and getting out of Montana in April, or I guess it was it's mostly April, would be pretty nice. It's always good to change the scenery a little bit, and traditionally it's a crappy kind of month. Just
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
been
muddy.
really nice actually, but
I know.
Yeah,
it was
it was.
actually looking at the weather, which I tried not to do. We faced a lot more cold weather and wind. And
yeah, I
just
saw those photos of you guys huddling in your truck, huddling in the cab, trying to avoid the wind.
oh man, yeah, we had.
It was crazy.
That was probably
Puts
the
Great Falls to shame. I'll say that.
Wow, yeah.
big time. The dust maybe was the
right.
added craziness to it. Most of our oil paintings are semi-dust infused from that.
Use the materials that were given to you, man.
Yeah, they were Plein Air. They'll know when they carbon date them when we're old and dead. This is definitely from that trip. There's a vast majority of dust in this paint, but
Right.
yeah, they to get a road trip out of this is gonna be awesome. And going by myself was gonna be cool, but at the same time, I know how like that can seem cool for like a day, and then pretty soon you're just, bored at your gourd. And so I'm really glad Richie ended up basically having to go because he didn't get tickets to Italy. So
were you gonna go with the FECC or something?
No, I would have been there at the same time as them. I was just going on like a trip just to kind of be there, study.
Cool.
Maybe work with another painter over there and just.
My mom
really
loved painting in Venice. It was one of her favorite places to paint ever.
There's just something about that place that's attracted artists for centuries. So still does.
There's a color named after it, Venetian red.
Venetian red.
Apparently they provided the world with beads for like the majority of beads being in existence.
So their glasswork,
Right. Yeah. That's true. So Richie right now is working on a painting, and he's toned the canvas with a sort of ochre-y.
Yeah, I just did yellow ochre, which is something that I started doing actually on this trip. Was it Bill Anton that was talking about? He's like, I just tone everything with yellow ochre because things seem to be cooler when you're working on site, so it warmed things up. It actually worked really well for me when I was painting. Like, I noticed it the most in like the warmth of all the red rock and stuff, but then also in the sky where I could just like paint in my cloud shapes and then paint around them in the blue, and then what was left was so close in value and warmth that it wasn't like a lot of labor to put in the sky. And that's what I'm hoping to do on this one as well. But
and you started sort of with a red mid-tone or mid value.
Yeah, I just did a little red line drawing just to get everything mapped out, and hopefully, I mean, I'm working from a small value sketch that I did on site. And then, so I'm transferring it on. It's got a bit different dimensions, so I've kind of stretched it out, and hopefully it's still interesting enough. I'll be kind of moving things around as I go. But I have all the values there, so then I'll just use some sketches in color that I did on the trip. And this is at Valley of the Gods in southern Utah, so I can get the color down. I already have the value, and this is working much larger, so kind of a studio piece for my studies, and we'll see how it goes.
A little closer.
And those two both, on site I did a value study prior, which you can see on this notepad. The one that's vertical is the same one that's vertical there. And it just organized all my structure beforehand, and then when I was working on it, I didn't have to worry about anything about value and it reading well in black and white. And so I was just focused on getting color right and getting interesting shapes and working on brushwork and paint application. And so it was just one less ball to juggle, while working. And now I'm, working on a larger studio piece, so we'll see how much good that actually does. Yeah. But I'm excited. It's already fun already.
Yeah, so, I like the composition.
Yeah.
And for all you listening, this is on YouTube. In case you're wondering what we're talking about, we're talking about art.
It's just better if you see it.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, there's a lot learned at the Plein Air Convention when it's like 3.5 days, basically 9-hour auditorium sitting.
Wow.
Getting hammered with information, and it was great. Overwhelming, but great. And then being able to have the time, like I'm really thankful for the time spent traveling, because if we had just gone down there, been all that information rained on your head and then transplanted right back here, like there was that like a time for us to really kind of like meditate on it. And when you're driving, you just think a lot, and you're painting a lot. Richie and I both painted a crap ton of paintings, and it gave us a chance to play with some of that new information on a kind of stress-free level, because of when you're here in the studio, like, all right, I'm already way behind on the paintings that I've done, but I think because of that separation, I was able to learn more than just going and coming back.
Right. Putting it into practice.
We literally have pages and pages and pages.
What were some of the topics that were discussed?
Well, they do in the morning. They'd start at 6 in the morning, so you get up and like rush over there, and well, Arizona doesn't have daylight savings, so it got dark at like 7 still, and it got bright out at like 5 in the morning. So you were kind of forced up as a camper anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I go. Richie couldn't go to any of these things because he didn't buy a ticket for it, so he'd just go run around like a maniac, and I'd be in this nice air conditioned place.
Were you painting, Richie, mostly? Or?
Yeah, in the mornings I'd paint and then go grab Ken for lunch, and then we'd get some food and I don't know, hang out. Paint a little bit in the evening, some watercolor stuff. So yeah, I just painted as much as I could and hiked around.
It was in Tucson?
Yeah, I was in Tucson, and we got to stay at a state park, so it was entertaining for me. I was just exploring the whole time.
It's really pretty there.
Yes.
And In-N-Out was like directly across the street from
That
the
was
camp.
problematic.
Right.
So we didn't have to cook it all the whole time we were there.
Well, you don't look too fat.
I definitely put on some weight,
Yeah.
but we'll blame the PBR for that. Yeah, they so we had a pretty good schedule there, I guess, but it just seemed like all like my brain would just be toasted by the end of the day, and the topics were. I mean, again, you think painting. It's like how long for you really talk about painting, and now a long time. Yeah, especially when you get so many different presenters. I mean, that's a real treat with the Plein Air Convention. Is you get unlike I could have paid $900 to go do a workshop for 2 days with somebody, or maybe less than that, but like I would have seen just them, just gotten that, had to fly or drive and deal with all that commitment and logistics, you know, to where I could just do this one thing where I got like 40 different artists around that are all, you know, either high level or professional, and I don't know, like I said, just to take the Matt Smith piece was really cool. Kurt Walters, who's a real famous.
So they do a demonstration on the stage?
Yep, it almost always, that was kind of the main structure, is
Okay.
they do a demo. Which again is cool because you can just see how they work. The problem is they were all given like an hour and a half, which is not a lot of time to be talking and painting anything that's
We've
halfway.
established that with this podcast.
Yeah, so it's just like, well, that was a stinker. Like you just don't get the time for it, and so when they did that, it was like hard. You could see how some of the artists were stressed up there, working as fast as they could, and like. But anyway, it's cool because I did get to see at least them work. I don't know what would be better if they were just there talking. I probably would have fallen asleep almost immediately. So it was good to have both. But the morning they did art boot camp or art marketing boot camp, I guess was what it's called. And so you've got different people talking about like marketing, and business stuff, which was like kind of sobering way to start the day.
Yeah.
Because you're just kind of thrown into that like, oh god,
It's 6 a.m.
I should be selling something, and yeah, but then it just kind of makes everything else seem like there's that other filter on it. Or if it's just like make pretty pictures in art time, I think we'd all just get too carried away.
Right.
And it's good to be back in reality. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it'd be better to do it in the evening or in the morning, but they slammed it in the morning for I think a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
For that stuff.
That makes sense. Everybody would be so checked out by the evening on that kind of topic, then you wouldn't get anywhere anyway.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like some of the gist of all this art business stuff is just showing up, and making it at 6 in the morning was kind of that like swift quick in the butt. That's kind of like you're feeling a little convicted. It's like, oh, I can't make it to art moving camp. It's 6 in the morning. And then you look at your life and you're like, I'm never going to make it. If I can't get up at 6 a.m. to do this incredible art marketing boot camp, how am I ever going to sell anything? And so you just are like, all right, I'm getting up and doing this. And they had like pretty good little breakfast thing you could eat and go do your thing. But it was just, I think the harder part was that is like 15 minutes later, after that was finished, demo started. After that was finished, 15 minutes later, a demo started. So you had to go to the bathroom, get back, and the break was at like 2 o'clock. So you were just like, brain fried. But again, that's why I took a lot of notes so I could
glazed over eyes.
we could and then a few times it was just like woo, like I gotta get out of here. And anytime you left that little part of the convention center, there's just like a pool out there with the sun on it. I'm doing everything wrong. Like I could be out there swimming right now.
I did.
Richie did sneak in and jump into the pool because
Nice.
well, since I didn't get to it, I feel like he made good on it.
Yeah, as we should have.
And the pool's not being used. That was the biggest depressing thing. Like,
Right.
It's literally 85 degrees outside, and
Which is cold for people down there.
Yeah.
Honestly. They're like,
Wearing a light jacket.
oh yeah, they might freeze to death.
I saw one of your notes you took said 20% of customers leave each year.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Basically,
People age out of buying art, or
maybe not art, but your art.
right?
I think depending on how you market or how you change, you can maybe get people that just have somehow unlimited wall space and just keep buying your stuff. But the real, I don't know, like the thing to be aware of is that if you're not actively seeking more customers
Right.
in new ways and different venues or different markets, I guess, like you're gonna drown. And so that was sobering.
Yeah.
Which I think
20% turnover. That's interesting. I'm curious what that probably just based on his personal experience, but
well, Eric Rhoads was a big one of the main talkers for the
Rhoads
business
is
stuff.
the publisher of Plein Air Magazine.
Yeah,
And
but
Plein Air Print?
before
Just
that, he was a radio
okay.
kind of like guru. He had all these awesome pictures of himself with superstars and like so he got big in marketing and advertising, dealing with his radio companies, which he then took over a portion of that like little world and wrote magazines on that for a long time, and he's just like, oh, I had my first million then, and then I got this, and then we're dealing with more millions, and so you just end up really wanting to do something with your money. And so he's
Back when there was money in radio, I guess.
yeah, no, that's the thing. It's like, so he's switched now, and he said he's always had a passion for art. He's always painted. He is a painter. And I think he just likes hanging out with painters. So it's, I mean, yeah, the coolest idea to be like so rich that you can really live out things that are more important to you than trying to make money.
Yeah.
So he I think achieved that, but he also achieved it because of very keen business sense. And when you hear business people talk about business stuff, it for me is very sobering because you realize it's not my brain. It just is not. And it's annoying when people think that you can just be like that. Because a lot of business guys, another guy I talked to was actually in marketing, was like, it's just like this. You just do this. And so like, yeah, of course you just do this. If this is happening, then do this. Like, I literally don't even think about that stuff. And then even though when I do think about it, it's in a level of like being in a tornado and trying to think. Like, you're just not in your element, and there's no way you can find grounding because you have no resources in it. So it's really cool when you get things like this where you can hear from somebody that's in it and done it and been successful to tell you something that you can try to stand on.
Mm-hmm.
But it's at the same time it's tough because you really, I think as an artist, don't want to do that for yourself. Like,
yeah,
the idea of paying somebody to me, like galleries taking 50% commission, I have no problem with it at all.
Right.
Take all 50% because I hate this stuff. Like, I want to paint. I'm good at it.
But it seems like galleries, though they still take the same percentage, they don't do as much business management of artists that they used to, at least as far as advertising goes.
I'm seeing a lot more artist-run kind of galleries, or they're kind of like these, like, most of the time I've ever been to, and I just would like to get into more galleries, but it's like they're kind of co-op-y, they're into art themselves, they used to do art, now they're doing this. It's like, I don't know if you're the best business person then. Like, I don't know if I was to say, because my art career starts to flounder, like, oh sweet, well I'm going to start an art gallery instead. Like, to me that's like insane.
Yeah, it's
that
the blind leading the blind. So.
Yeah. It feels like that sometimes. So I've never been able to commit to those kind of galleries because I want somebody that's in a business mindset to do this, because it's I don't know, aggressive. I mean, you just have to be aggressive, and artists aren't really that type of person.
Tend not to be, more introverted and thoughtful, I'd say, and yeah.
So, but it was really cool to get that exposure at this thing. It was just like how you were going to face the just kind of objective and solid reality that's out there while not losing the part of you in your art that can apply to stuff that's not really physically tangible and cool. So it's like you just got to figure out how it's going to affect each other.
Focus on what you do well and do that, and try to find somebody else who can do the other stuff for you. That's what I've been trying to do with it.
Yeah, like cool talk. The first one, this boot camp, Eric Rhoads did really quick, but then Lee Miltier, who's like more of a motivational speaker, I'd say, anything else. But she came up and talked for the first hour and a half of the boot camp thing that we did, and she was she world famous author, but brought up really poor and had a rough upbringing, which I think is if you use that kind of thing right, you get a lot out of it. And so she just had that kind of energy that was very, just, I don't know. She's seen the bottom, and she just doesn't need to be there anymore.
Right.
And I know other people that are like that with that kind of background.
So motivated.
Oh yeah, they're motivated on a level that like I maybe just growing up in nice little middle class America, like I don't have that kind of fire again. So to me, it's just a different kind of mindset. But the cool thing is that she said she has to focus on that mindset. It's not something that's just innately there. And so she talked about some of the steps and thought processes and like meditations basically she does to deal with that in your life. She's like, it's not like, because there's a lot of people that go through crisis and hard times and poverty and they end up addicted to drugs and dead. And so she's now a millionaire and building some multi-story thing in some beach in California. And it's like,
She's an artist?
no, so she's more of an author.
Oh, right.
But she's a marketer, and
Gotcha.
she would basically go to businesses like Intel and stuff and talk about like how you approach your business in a way that's going to make it successful, not just financially, but on the level that's more important, and how that ties back to your finances if you let it. And I have that kind of mindset sometimes when I'm selling paintings that like, oh, I'm just like trying to sell these things to anybody that's going to buy them, like wrestling with like, well, if this sells, do I just need to paint like 15 more of them? Do I just do prints? Like, how do I just like make money off of this and not like kind of hate it that you're not respected amongst your peers? I mean, I feel like I'm generally peer respected, but like when you go to an art show or like you're like, I'm an okay painter and just nobody knows, nobody cares, nobody buys anything. It's just like you see someone that's doing squigglies in New York City selling something for $18 billion. It's like, well, what am I doing this for? You know? And so she's talking about like you gotta just kind of change that mindset that you're not selling anything, but you're providing people what they want.
Yeah.
They have a need for what you do on a spiritual level of like creating art or creating anything it's gonna, you're providing joy to their life. And the easier you make it for them, the more you get it out there, which is what marketing really is just getting it in front of their eyes and making them apparent that it's there and that they can have it for a price.
Yeah.
Then it's gonna happen for you. So it was really cool just to kind of switch that instead of being like, oh god, I have to advertise so I can reach rich people that don't care about me.
So, yeah.
No, they care about art. They obviously do. If they're gonna be looking at this stuff and if they want it on their walls and they're gonna spend a kind of money on it, then they have to care. And that's beautiful.
Well, you asked why do it, why you do it, and before we started, you guys were saying how you were just drowning, not just immersed, but drowning in the art community, the art world for the last 3 weeks, basically. 4 weeks, almost a month, huh?
It's been about a month, yeah.
Yeah, and that you loved it, and that you were truly in it, and you weren't, wondering what you were missing out on every day, or, and that you couldn't necessarily have been in that mind frame being here in your studio.
Yeah.
And with your friends around and easily accessible. So that's I think that's pretty inspiring though
that I didn't just want to run home.
Yeah. That you're enjoying every day and appreciating the opportunity and
yeah, it was pretty cool. We didn't sell anything, so that's the only problem. I feel like there's still an element of like showing up for work that's really important. I mean, I guess we did. I sold some studies and stuff. We do have a show that's going to happen in Bozeman with some of these studies we did.
Cool. When is that?
We have to talk to.
It's going to be next. It'll be next month.
Excellent.
Yeah, and so I mean we both have a ton of paintings, but we're gonna probably. I already sold a couple, and I got to trim them down and get the cream of the crop, if you will, down there for that. And so that's really cool. So there's things that like came about from it. We got to see mentors in the art world. We got to see so much that was like you just overdrive, and it's really cool. That previously I could have done a vacation to Moab or the Arches or all the Utah deserts and stuff, and done a few paintings. But if I was with anybody, they want to go hike or camp or lay around and just like they don't really want to.
Anybody except Richie or other artists, perhaps.
Yeah, the cool thing is that Richie and I share a studio together, so there's no wild card of like, can I spend 50 hours with you in a car? It's like we spend hours in the studio working together, so it was easy environment to be in, and that was just a
hygiene solid. You guys are
back now we are.
So hygiene? What's hygiene?
living in a car for a while, I imagine.
I almost spit on the kitchen floor last night. Like,
I almost spit my toothpaste on the.
yeah, you just like you get the heathen mode, and yeah, there was definitely the majority of that. I'd say we made it through with just fart jokes and Dumb and Dumber references and like the standard dumb crap that.
The important stuff.
Yeah, the important stuff. Yeah, it's like you'd think we'd just been talking about politics and world religions the whole time and inspiring art stuff. It's like mostly we were just in our heads listening to that audiobook or making jokes and laughing about crap we saw on YouTube or something, and then we pull over, be able to paint for a couple hours, and any other work, like any other road trip we've done before, it's just like, oh, well, they don't want to do this, they don't do that, they want to sleep in it. It's like, so we were able to just like, I got 8 paintings done one day.
Wow.
Like, just literally one after another, like just cranking them out because we're so psyched to be in this new environment. You get a couple successes, you get failures, trying to like make up for it, and when there's nothing else to do except play cribbage at camp, like oh, let's just paint another time. There's no Netflix, there's no YouTube.
What was the win-loss record for cribbage? 50-50.
Ended up pretty even.
I was getting spanked pretty hard.
I mean, it started out
Once you
pretty
understand
bad.
how to play the game, to me it seems like it's almost 50-50.
I was whooping Ken so bad when he didn't know how to play. It felt good.
Right.
I mean, math is so hard for me anyway that
It's a good exercise for that first time.
Oh my gosh, it was hilarious.
gotta hate it.
So there's a some sort of Japanese game show where they have to teach someone how to read English in a certain amount of time, and then they have to try to do it, and then if they don't do it, the person who taught them has to get like hit with a stick or something like that if they laugh or something like that. And the guy's up there trying to read numbers in English. He's just like scratching his head. He's like so upset. He just so much brain power going to him. He's like, he gets to 20. And he's like 10. He's just like, and Ken was always just like, oh man, I can't.
Yeah.
7 and 8 is what?
Well, Chinese, it's 10-10 it's just
Is that how it is?
Archer, two tens.
That's hilarious.
So, and it actually they're much in elementary school because of their language system. They tend to be much better than us at math early on because of just
The way they think about
that
it.
makes sense.
That's
rather
already
than like 20 is a separate number. No, they're all based on 10.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I don't know, just more. I've never been so like consistently painting probably because there was no weekends, there was no weekdays. There was just traveling and painting. There's days where we were traveling and didn't paint probably, but it was awesome just to not have that.
There's no distractions.
Right.
It's hard because distractions are cool too. Like coming home now, so we gotta get the garden going hard. It's like that's gonna take a lot of time this week and the next couple of weeks, and just like doing crap around the house that is hours and hours of work. Making dinner instead of just like opening a can of beans and some rice and making a burrito in 15 minutes. It's like, oh, we gotta go to the store and get this and that and this and that and invite friends over and get beers and wine, and it's like suddenly dinner, which was 15 minutes, is now a 3-hour ordeal with dishes, and like we didn't even have a sink, so like Huggy wipes were just like all you need.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you.
Yeah, Lauren
Shout out to
actually
Lauren.
saved us on that.
Turns you on to Huggy wipes.
Yeah, I've never used them while camping before, and they're
Just wet wipes for keeping.
pretty much it's
clean.
good enough for a baby's butt.
Yeah, right.
It's good enough for my dishes.
I always think it's hilarious when I see those in people's bathrooms because apparently you're wiping anybody's butt is good with them. Apparently, I've heard.
I
But
believe it.
you're not
I didn't
supposed to
actually
put
use
them
it
down
for
the
that.
toilet.
I was wondering too that where do they go?
They really mess up the plumbing systems.
Oh, no.
Or they leave them in the trash.
They destroy them. Yeah, which is disgusting. So I don't think a lot of people do that. That's what they did in China. They always they don't put the toilet paper down.
I feel like it's time they just make Huggies that maybe are septic safe, and then
Right.
that would be a problem solved.
But I think what makes
Also toilet
them,
paper.
they're strong. They're not very biodegradable, right? You can't really rip them.
Yeah, they're pretty dang
Very
tough.
easily,
But I feel
so-
like the main virtue of having a wipe is that it'd be maybe a little wet is cool, but that it has some kind of cleaning agent. That's really like the main.
Yeah. But toilet paper wouldn't hold
bleach
up to
sprayed
that
on it.
moisture, right?
No, probably not.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, this is part of the art world. How to stay clean on the road.
Seriously, bring wet wipes.
Huggy wipes. That works.
Yeah, it was just a lot of. It's just non-essential time. in our regular world, so it's cool to cut away all that fat.
Well, but that's the spice of life. The friends, the dinner, all that.
It's
it
good.
It takes a long time. It takes away from your craft, yes, and that's why the real geniuses didn't have any friends, you know?
Yeah, it's true. They were better at just saying no.
Yeah.
And that, like, coming back after all that thing, I mean, it's been really sweet, so, like, but it is weird to feel that different kind of feeling about my craft a little bit. Like, and I'm really worried it's going to lose strength again just because of...
What?
What
is going to lose strength?
That, like, comfort and acceptance into doing it all the time and, like, really being in it.
Well, I think that's important that, I mean, it does lose strength, I think, when you, like, need to grow more, you know?
Yeah.
And then you get to go on another road trip.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that is. We're gonna try to go up to Glacier this week to Plein Air paint, just to stay fresh with that stuff because it's open quite a bit now, and just to be back in the home front. It's cool to now. Like a lot of these desert studies, I probably won't be able to sell uberly successfully, but who knows? You know, but it's not like it's the market here entirely.
Right.
But the way the market works anymore is it's impossible to predict. So,
but a lot of people who buy art here are snowbirds who retreat to the desert for the winter. So,
a lot of Montanans, even they're cool adventure people, are like, man, that's one of my favorite places to go.
Yeah,
and for good reason. It's really awesome down there. But definitely,
that's a beautiful purple, Rich. Richie's applying kind of shadow perp to the distant mountains. How did you make that?
Well, that's a secret, Morgan.
Right.
No, so I am using semi-limited palette, yellow ochre for my main yellow right now, and a cadmium yellow medium, but mostly the yellow ochre with some ultramarine blue. I guess it's not mostly yellow ochre in this purple mixture, but that's kind of what's toning it down. So ultramarine blue, cadmium red, a little bit alizarin crimson, and then I'm using some red iron oxide to also bring it down in the intensity of it, but as well as the yellow ochre.
Gotcha.
Thanks. So I'm just trying to keep it a nice. I can always bring it up in value. I think easier than trying to make it darker. So I'm starting a bit dark right now.
Yeah.
But I also just want this rock here to pop, and then I want a lot of contrast in here to just kind of step you back. And in this painting, what I thought I did successful was keep temperature shifts within the shadow of the rock. Like there's like right here, that rock, then to this shadow here, then to this shadow here, and then to these purples in the back, and then that blue in the farther back. I thought I really got that temperature shift as it went back to get that depth. So that's what I'm trying to emulate as well in this.
Right.
And
I think that'll work. You might have to lighten it up a bit, but
yeah, it's a bit dark, but it could be. I like the shape of it, so.
Very interesting. Reads well on the video.
That sure does. It's cool to be somewhere so graphic. I mean, here there's so much trees and vegetation and stuff that really kind of confuses planes. Just like if there's an angled slope and there's trees all over it, you can't necessarily see the huge value shift or change if it's trees on the flat slope. So they shift up. They're all just giant, massive green and blue. And
the drama is sort of more in the mountains and the sky than on the ground.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, so there's drama everywhere because their planes were so like just geometric and rugged and like just gnarly that you could see it all so clearly and make really cool designs. And I could see how those, desert master painters were so drawn to it, and it's really hard not to
subtlety, but
yeah, they're doing like Russell Case and Edgar Payne, and Edgar Payne did a lot of stuff, but some of his desert stuff is just incredible. And who's the other guy that's real famous? Maynard Dixon.
Nikolai Fetchin, I remember seeing some really amazing.
That's who it was. Maynard Dixon. That's who we were trying to think of.
Maynard Dixon was the American guys. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen Nikolai's desert paintings.
Just remember seeing one way back in the day at the Heritage Inn show.
Oh, sick.
I think it was Coeur d'Alene Galleries had it actually.
Yeah, anyway, you can tell why it's drawn artists forever, and being able to be in there and
the
be
American
with that brotherhood
Southwest.
a little bit.
There's really nothing like the American Southwest as far as geographic similarities go.
Yeah, and well, just how packed it is. Like you could see maybe in some continent there's cool rocks here and there, but Utah was just overwhelmingly. Like by the time we got to Moab, since it was one of the last stops, which is traditionally where most people go to see arches and canyonlands, like awesome rock formations, we'd seen so much that we're like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You should have been here just like, oh my god, look at these crazy rock arches, but we just seen that.
Yeah.
We've seen all these other monuments and spires and like crazy formations that it's overwhelmingly.
Did you have plans? Did you have like marks along the way to check off, or did you kind of just see a place or know you were going through a park and stop on the side of the road, or both?
We had a really well. It was mostly my trip beforehand,
right.
So Richie was kind of subjugated to what the hell I wanted to do, and I had done just a little bit of research into things that seemed cool on the way down there. Like just Google mapped it, and then followed the route down and saw what was close. So Zion was pretty much right along the route, and I'd never been there before, and I'd been to Moab and all that stuff, so it wasn't a huge ordeal. And originally our route was to go down, hit up Zion, and some of these other canyons down there in Arizona, and then get to Tucson, and then go over to Santa Fe and like Albuquerque and some of the New Mexico into Denver to see some artist friends and galleries and stuff there, and then back into Jackson Hole and the Tetons and see Rocky Mountain National Park. But there's so much snow up there. Like Colorado got 4 feet of snow or something sometime when we were on our trip.
Wow.
And most it melted, I'm sure, in a couple of days, but it's still just crazy that that's how the weather was, and where we were is better than that. And I found out like about Sedona out of the blue, so that was one of those like wild cards that I never thought to go see. And so we spent we spent probably a week
Sedona
there.
Park?
Sedona's a city,
Right.
but it's
Nearby.
It's is it a state park or Forest Service land?
Sedona's just weird, and it was cool. Like it almost reminded me of like what national parks would be if they weren't national parks.
Okay.
Like super rich people could buy cool houses there, and like kind of weird hippies that like nature would be congregating there, and there's just more people than there should be there probably. But it was cool that
regulated.
No, well, the cool thing was that it was like just like tons and tons and tons of trails, and they were pretty short, like kind of like Lone Piney type trails or Whitefish Trail stuff that like was just going through crazy red rock formations instead of boring pine tree forests, and then you could like immediately be back in town. They didn't have that national park for like, oh yeah, well you're here, and now you're gonna pay $18 for gas and a burger, and like you can't leave. And so that was cool. Like Sedona's just like a comfortable kind of homey environment, but then you could just drive up some of these canyons and be back in the boonies in no time without it being national parks. You could kind of camp wherever you wanted on BLM land. So we got some camping there. And the second time we went back through it, we stayed in a campground, and that was cool too, except for the showers. The $8 shower or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
That's ridiculous.
The lava pressure
It was
washer.
a lava pressure washer. You put this quarter or this coin in, and it started right away. You had 8 minutes. Jump in, and there's no switching hot water, cold water, and it was
It's just
lava hot.
Okay.
And it was awful. I came out and I was just like, felt like my skin had been burnt off.
Well, water is precious down there, I suppose.
Yeah, they're gonna heat it up by golly. The guy was like, "Oh yeah, it's hot." I was expecting
Even
like,
before I was like, I got the shower thing. I was like, is it hot? He's like, oh yeah, it's hot. I was like, whatever. And then I couldn't even handle it.
I get out of the shower. I think he was closer to the big heater or something.
I was at
'cause-
number 1, so I think that was.
Yeah, mine was further down the line, and had still a very uncomfortably hot shower. But I got out, and Richie was just like stomping around in the gravel, all pissed, and like
And red.
It was
Which is worse, cold shower or a hot shower? I don't know.
I think
would you rather?
hot shower.
Yeah, because you can't even get in. At least you can get used to like cold.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's hot.
yeah. So anyway, that was like you get for paying $60 for camping. We got to take a shower at least for the first time in a long time. That was cool, and have a bathroom and all the normal luxuries that you humans have, but we
As opposed to artists.
as opposed to mangy road artists. So yeah, Sedona's really cool. Monument Valley, we knew it was going to be a spot too if we could make it. So the problem is you got there and the same kind of situation come up with the national park deal, except it's on reservation land. So it's like going to be $20 to get into the park, where you could look at the visitor center, and then more money to try to get around the park because you have to be led by a tribal member.
Oh.
So you can't just roam around. There's no hiking trails. There's no
It's guided.
Yeah. So we took off from there to this place I heard about on the internet called Valley of the Gods that not a lot of people know about apparently. But there's this crappy little town called Mexican Hat where we had the worst coffee I've ever had in my life by far.
Wow.
Like a landslide victory to this.
Yeah, no question
Been in there
about
for
it.
a
Who
week or
knows?
something.
No, I think
Yeah.
years, and then mixed with cat urine or something. Like it was offensive to drink.
It was bad.
I try to drink as much coffee as I can when I pay $2 for it because I want refills and I want to make my $2 worth.
Just choking it down.
And I still try to like an idiot. It burned all the way. Like there was once it was even in your belly, everything was angry. Like
Good Lord.
I know it was saying that, but that's Mexican Hat, and the other feature of that town is
Worst
the
coffee.
7-Eleven. But it was cool because I mean at that little restaurant they had actually really good food, and the help people, the waiters, yeah, all the people that were there were just like, hey, like welcome, like
Hey,
just-
what's up?
yeah, it was like so cool and psyched. What are you doing? Like just giving you info. And I went to all these places in New York City. It was one of these dilemmas we had a lot, or like I have a lot of conversations with people about it. But you know, like Richie, like I'm gonna go to Venice, or people, I want to go to New York City. I want to experience arts and culture. And they would kind of tell you that that's where it happens.
Right.
And when I was able to go, right now, when you go to these places, like yeah, like the food might not be as good as it could be. And I went to really great food in New York City. The service usually sucks.
Yeah.
Everybody just kind of hates you, and you kind of hate them in that kind of environment. You get little bubbles of it, but it was still like to be out here. They have no idea who I am. I have no idea who they are. Like they could just treat you kind of like crap if they wanted to, and you're just a tourist or something, you know. But they don't. They're like from that kind of culture and environment where it's just like.
Yep, everybody.
New people are welcome.
People,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was I don't know. That to me was like worth more than any art museum. Like that you could show up at a restaurant, and they're just like totally psyched to see you, and you go to the gas station, they want to talk to you about where you're camping and what you're doing, and
Right.
why you're banging a bunch of band-aids and rubbing alcohol.
Wait, no, well,
What's the band-aids for?
Oh, I had sliced a big
Because-
hole in my
oh.
thumb
Oh.
with my knife, trying to dig for fossils. And like,
I
Did you find it?
no, I didn't even cut the rock open. It just slid right off the rock and into my thumb,
Oh.
and then
Ouch.
my fossil pursuits are over. I think forever. But anyway, it was rad. So we just went out there. Instead of there being any rules, it was just BLM land. So there's just one like 4-wheeling road. It'd be like almost going up to like the North Fork or something. Like there's just not a lot of people there. And people there wouldn't care. And you just park anywhere. And
That's Valley of the Gods.
yeah, and it looks just like Monument Valley. These huge spires and pillars and crazy rock formations, and you could just go anywhere you want. Walk wherever you want. Check stuff out. You could paint. Uninhibited except for 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Right.
yeah.
That's a problem.
That happened the third day we were there. Like we were like,
We're like, what?
when we first got there, we're like, we're gonna stay here for 2
I'll
weeks.
stay here forever.
Let's just not leave here. Like, we can go into town and get ice and crappy food, and then just live here for as long as we can for free. But yeah, sure enough, the wind came.
There are downsides.
Yeah, I was wondering because the sage bushes were all like beaten against the ground. I was kind of
Right.
wondering since we were there, it was so calm,
Right.
like how they got like that.
Yeah.
I found out later.
So Richie, you blade in some of that shadow in other parts of the painting. to come
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Very nice. Did you adjust the color temperature at all for that, or
A little bit. Yeah, no.
not yet? You can always go warmer.
There's quite a bit of variance in here, and I try to keep it a little bit. Like these are a little bit cooler, and this one's a little bit warmer, but they're pretty close to the same here. The one thing I'd make the difference is bring this up in value, so it pushes back more.
Mhm.
But I'm just really getting the block in.
Yeah.
Once I get the kind of ground in, and then start working on the greens,
Yeah.
I'll really have a feeling of like the light.
Look how it looks on the video on the screen. It looks really cool.
Yeah, man.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, totally.
Isn't that weird? How it's hard to see with your own eyes what it looks like. But
Yeah. No, totally.
Maybe it's the high kind of. It's a little lighter on the video. So. Ken, meanwhile, is doing some sketches, little compositional sketches in his book.
Well, you'll like this more actually because it probably was one of the most striking things in the Plein Air Convention was Brian Mark Taylor's talk about learning, and he's an incredible artist anyway, and he's the guy who made the Strata easel. He's like really involved. He teaches it. He teaches the master's program at a school in San Francisco. I can't remember which one it is now. But he's a well-respected guy, but his whole thing he talked about was just about how your brain learns and how basically you're doing it wrong. And that's a part of these sketches, the process now. Like, I would like to strengthen my composition because at art school we didn't do that. We did just form and anatomy and like just the basics of like how to draw stuff that's there. And now trying to make it into art and make it into things that are catching to your eye and beautiful or whatever, that's just not what academies teach. That's kind of, they leave it up to you. The problem is it's still a skill that's developed, like anything. And so Brian Marchetta said like the biggest crux and things that are ruining people is that they're confusing their performance and their practice. They're trying to make them the same. And in other aspirations of high degrees, that's never the way it works. Like, you wouldn't show up at a concert just to have Yo-Yo Ma play scales for 2 hours. Like, even though he absolutely does play scales for 2 hours.
And they'd be beautiful.
And they probably would sound awesome. It's still like there's a different pursuit for that time. And as a sports guy, it's like you don't, when it's time to go play, you don't just like, all right, cool, yeah, I'll just grab a couple golf balls and just like hit him. Like, no, like, you have the one golf ball that you have to make work right now, and so if you don't have that practice in, you're gonna screw it up. And as a painter, it's no different. Like,
what's the performance aspect of a painter?
The performance aspect, he said that you're no longer trying to develop something in you. You're like kind of releasing something.
It's already been developed. You're already
internalized.
it.
And when you're doing both, you're gonna do both poorly. And it's probably more of a side effect. I think people can be developing, important works to themselves and be learning. I don't think it's like...
I think every painting is a learning and practice experience, and maybe not all of them are performances, I guess.
That's the problem, is that when you... Like, I can say this after doing it for my academy training, like, that it makes so much sense, is that, like, those paintings and drawings and all the crap I did in school were done only for practice. Only. Right. There was no expectation you were going to show these. There's no expectation you were going to sell them. There's no expectation that they were anything worthwhile in themselves. Even if they were very beautiful and really cool, it was still like, well, this isn't art. And the more time I put in doing that, the easier it's been for me to just go set up somewhere and I can draw now. Like, just more innately than most other people, because I have put in thousands of hours of drawing.
Yeah.
And only worrying about drawing. It's all you get better at quicker, I guess. Like with language, these things, like there's certain processes you take. So if you do want to get values right in your painting, or you struggle with that, like the only way you can do that is by working on it on a basis that is observable for success or failure.
Which, probably black and white, basically. Great.
Yeah. So you set up, instead of being like, oh, I'm going to set up this plein air painting, I'm going to go out and paint out plein air paint, and think about values as I think about the 18 other balls you're juggling when you're painting plein air or painting in the studio even. So when you eliminate that...
Which is exactly what I'm doing now. It's like, I don't have to juggle this value ball.
Because he did that on those drawings. But anyway, the cool thing to talk about, it's actually a lot more approachable than people make it. It's actually way harder to do when you're mixing them. Like, if I'm going to go to this, like, I got some big paintings to do and I'm just going to, like, jump into them, I'm going to suffer so much more than if I did the background work to learn about some stuff. And the big thing he just talked about was like whether or not things would go from your short-term memory into your long-term memory. And that's a big...
Right.
That's a big...
Remembering how to make that color again. Or...
It's just how you become smarter. Like, the only reason someone's smart is because their brain holds some stuff that's important to the real world, and it has to stay there somewhere. And if you don't make that happen, then it won't. Like, your short-term memory is just a piece of crap. I don't even know how we have it sometimes. Like, he talks about how it'll just, like, immediately forget.
Some things you want to forget.
Yeah, and that's actually, I think, why it's there.
Not always a curse. Sometimes it's a blessing.
But the process for doing that is, like, you do 2 hours, preferably every single day, working on something very, very specific and graded. And you don't do 50 different things at once. You don't do color tomorrow and this the next day and this the next day like people want to do. You do value for 2 months. 10 different exercises, success or failure. Focus on it for 2 hours every day. Or he said like 5 days a week is even pretty cool. And if you do that for a couple months, you will, first of all, absolutely see progress, especially if you're in that critical mindset. That's why he said he only can do it for about 2 hours, because any longer than that, you'll just start to get soft on yourself.
Get lazy, yeah.
Yeah, and so like you just do that for 2 hours, and he does this at night. He just puts his kid to sleep and then sits there and works on whatever aesthetic problem he wants to get better at. And he was talking about working on edges. So he was just breaking down all this painting process. Only thing that mattered was edges. And then at the end of that 2-month period, he'll start incorporating stuff he's learned, almost like a class. Like think about what's different now. What am I painting different? How can I control these edges better? And start using it in his actual big paintings. So he's not trying to play with edges while he's making these big paintings. He's leaving that.
Focusing
for
on
something.
one aspect.
Anyway, it's really
great discipline.
struck me because I just really haven't done that since art school, and I can tell I've plateaued on progress. Like, there's lots of other aspects of art that I did not train in,
Right.
and I would like to be competent in. So it's like, sweet, I'm going to start doing for 2 hours every day thumbnails and value sketches of design. Like, if I can move this shape over here or narrow this shape, because painting from photographs is crippling in that regard. Like, and any good artist doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Like talking to Matt Smith and Bill Anton, these are like some painters I really look up to. Like, just not use photos. Like, use them if you need to, but they're basically a lying, distracting, worthless little tool. And if the more you can rely on your design sense and your observation sense, but Bill said the point of plein air painting is that, you know, if it's that hard, there's got to be some worth in knowing how to do it. So, like, just problem solving, what you get when you're out there, like things you just get rid of, things you have to get rid of, things you can focus on, and using that as you get back to the studio and remembering what you were doing, looking at your studies and saying, oh yeah, it was that tree on that rock or whatever that was really holding my attention. You get a big photo of that, suddenly it was the waterfall back there and the cloud that's up here and the eagle that was up there, and like you have this big crappy painting of all these things that never hold integrity.
Misleading.
Yeah, so anyway, it was really convicting. I pointed out a lot of flaws in my process and my working about it. So,
Cool.
yeah, that's what I'm doing now is value sketches. Design. Things I'm not good at.
Well, you can definitely see you're doing composition and your works. Might not be your ideal, but
Well, it's just like the I'm doing them, but I could be better at them, or like they're not like I can't say I'm in control of them. Same with color. That's the other thing I got to spend some time actually just studying in. And if I try doing that while I'm doing a big auction piece, more than likely I'm going to be more frustrated, and then the learning doesn't happen like it should. It's maybe not that my performance, like the painting might not look worse because I'm trying to get better at it, but I'm not going to get as much out of it. It'd be like practicing Italian one day of the week.
yeah.
You're just not going to get it. Even though you did it, it's cool you did it. Like, you need to be doing something like that so regularly that it becomes a part of your brain.
And I think there's danger in being too hard on yourself about that stuff. Like,
I don't know what that is.
we can't all do everything right all the time.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah, I
It's
can't
hard.
be those guys, that's for sure. But it was, I mean, again, when you get to meet them and you see how, like, because everyone has this kind of mystique when you imagine they're more crazy or something, or more intense, and so a lot of the guys, the artists I met, were super down to earth. But one of the things that I noticed that they're very much scientists.
Yeah.
All of them.
And disciplined.
Disciplined scientists. Like, it's not the artist like people want to think that it's like
With the beret.
just hanging out. Like, they are literally so almost obsessed with what they do.
Yeah.
And so observant and so analytical. Like, it's like, is this yellow better than this yellow? I don't know. And they will go through the process of trying to figure it out. And then when you talk to them, it's intimidating because they're just on that level of knowledge. And that just doesn't happen if you are going to paint today. You know. You got to be in it for another reason. And I think that's, again, they're in it for reasons that's not them. And I know it's not me to just plateau. Like, I really want to be better. And trying to figure out where I can get better. Color is a big one for me, and like I said, composition is more about art. And
It's more of a feeling than a science.
it's like how do I get better at acknowledging like what I like about the scene, and how do I push myself to break away from photos, really, because I've been when you're painting Glacier Park, it's like you can't just plein air paint constantly up there. Like you just go on hikes and you take some pictures and you come back to the studio and they're beautiful. But being able to use that same process, that like confident, like I don't want these trees here at all. I'm gonna move this mountain over here.
Yeah.
And it's gonna make this scene very powerful because I know design so well. And a lot of these guys I talked to were just like, no, it's like, why would I put this here if I could just put it here? Like almost like, what are you thinking, you idiot? And that's where it makes me uncomfortable. It's like, oh, I should know this. Even it's like everyone's personal choice at some point. When you see their personal choices, you're like, I feel like their personal choices are better than me, and the way they got there was practice.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the way to get better at it is just to do practice, and that kind of
Man, we talking about practice.
no, it's not very fun.
No, that's good. It was an Allen Iverson interview. He got really mad about something a long time ago.
He's a sports guy?
Basketball player, yeah. He had this breakdown on live TV.
On live TV?
He just he was pissed off that they were criticizing him for some behavior in practice.
Really?
Man, we're talking about practice. And he just keeps saying, practice.
That's pretty funny. That's a good example though. Like sports is one of those, like, it animates really well, and people just don't want to put that kind of concrete value on the art world in our day and age. It's not well. It's just like, oh well, it's all relative. If you want to paint with squiggly lines and crayons, you're no more an artist than someone that paints with a lifelong study
pursuit of
yeah. And that's just how our nice PC world is going. But you wouldn't know it's national basketball. Like you'd just be like, oh yeah,
I play with these rules.
like Ken's here today. He's on the team tonight. Like he's played some. He takes himself very seriously. He's very passionate about basketball. He's also 5'6" and can't jump. And it's like it is. We're laugh. And then the art world though, it's like when someone shows up with that kind of mentality, they're just like, oh, and it nauseates me because of how hard it is to do this well.
Yeah.
And if people were more educated on it or whatever, I don't know why. Like I guess people play more sports in school and art, and so they don't have that kind of appreciation for what it does take. Yeah.
Funding goes
to the freaking
to sports primarily.
Because there's more money in it. I know now.
Ticket sales.
Yeah, it's just but that's one of the things that really drive me up a wall because it's not relative to me. I think that there is standards that are gorgeous and beautiful and worth upholding, or at least acknowledging and not disregarding like the art world does now. The world just literally does not care.
I think they care. I mean, that's what the art industry professionals are there for, is for that. And I agree, there's tons of bullshit.
Yeah, just look at the Sotheby's auction house thing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, 14 million, huh? You sold it upside down, huh?
Really? Did that happen?
And I think it was for 30 million.
I sold it upside down. Oh my gosh.
Didn't matter.
And that's where it's like, I'm sorry, there's a problem here. And that the cool, like when we talked a couple podcasts back about education and how it's like, if every one of your students left and then did not do what they were trained to do successfully, they failed. They sold coffee instead, or they got a job in marketing. You know, like the art world does suffer.
Graphic design.
You wouldn't take it. You wouldn't. I mean, like it's like engineering doesn't work like that. It's like, well, good work, you guys did it. Now you actually don't know how to do anything, so we're gonna But for some reason, the art world is just rife with it. Music, even it's the other art form that I can't just because I have a harmonica, I'm not gonna get a gig in the Great Northern. No one would allow it.
No.
But then you go to a coffee shop or an art. Huh?
You're pretty good at that thing.
No. But then it's just it's like you bring a bunch of tin cans and pots and just be like, take me seriously. I'm gonna play the bar tonight. But I think you can get.
I think a great example of that, if we look at art as a language, like a language, you can't just go to France and not have any foundation of how it works and just be like,
use your hands.
and they'll just, it's like no, you won't communicate with anybody. And I think that art is the same thing. And not that you can't validly and accurately communicate in a contemporary, explorative way. There's really great examples of that, but it's like in general, it's.
Well, yeah, the message is a lot harder to read if it's abstract, Rothko or something.
Yeah.
And some of it's incredibly gorgeous and
It is.
powerful when you hear about it. It's just that it's swamped it so hard.
Yeah.
Like, no other art form has had that kind of, I don't want to say destruction, but they haven't had that kind of loss of foundations.
No
Yeah.
other industry.
Yeah, I mean, like you can still go hear classical music. You can still go, and I think now in like our art world, we're really spoiled because there is a lot of really super insanely talented craftsmen, artists, and not just, I don't know, reduction artists or whatever you want to, like abstraction. Like, I can go to galleries here and see stuff that's in that tradition, the brotherhood of these artists that have just studied and cared about the world and how to communicate with the beautiful things we see, and not just whatever else they want to do. Because again, I've seen a lot of that abstraction art that I really enjoy, and that's one of the things with a lot of the artists I talk to. Like, go look at abstract art, because all it relies on is design.
Yeah.
And so that's like, I'd never have done that. So it's like, cool. I have a new thing to learn and grow and be a scientist like them. Because when I'm 40, I want to be better. I don't want to think that my best years were back then. Because as I look at some of my paintings already, it's like, I'm losing my eye, I'm losing my something. I gotta like push myself more, because otherwise my best paintings already happened and I'm too young for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I was just reading an article about a bunch of, I think, a collection of paintings. Premier among them were some Mark Rothko's, and they were sold a couple times through various from one company, from one couple in Long Island, I think, who presented themselves as art dealers to a gallery, and then from the gallery they were sold, and
Oh yeah.
turned out they were fakes done by a Chinese immigrant living in New York,
Really?
and they were indistinguishable, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
I guess that doesn't really. I just talked about a
Well,
lot of it when I talk about Rothko.
it'd be
And
hard.
it's just as easy to. It's just as easy to fake a representational piece as it is an abstract square. You know, a square on a red background. It's not that easy. I mean, it takes a lot of skill. I mean, you have to
Yeah, but the
really
way
understand the principles.
the Chinese study is that Russian tradition. They can draw anything.
Right.
There's actually a huge problem right now. I saw Scott Burdick post about it a year or two ago, that you could go buy these prints, but they sold them for like pretty high amounts of money, but they were originals. They were not like a giclée print. They were hand painted
Hand painted.
replications
Right.
of Scott Burdick's paintings,
Oh wow.
of Bill Anton's paintings.
Living artists.
Living artists, a whole list of them. You should see look at this website. This is just insane. Like, the whole list of people, like, anything they looked art in America, and they would find whatever painters they could, whoever's on magazines, whoever had what, and they could recreate them flawlessly as oil paint, and then take them to America and sell them. And I don't know, it was making Scott Burdick very angry.
I can imagine. It's intellectual property.
The crazy thing is, in that kind of country, following some kind of legal measures while you live in South Carolina, it's just like, where do you start? How do you get an attorney that can fly to China
You
and
don't.
confront it?
And they won't enforce any of that copyright law at all. So it's
Right, so that's why he was basically appealing. Is like, if you are one of my collectors, you're one of the people that value my art, and you've ever purchased anything that was not original, like, shame on you, basically. Like, you're doing something so terrible you don't even understand. And it was pretty scary. It's like, oh yeah, your artwork is, I don't know.
Subject to.
it's a commodity.
Yeah. And that people would treat it so cheaply. It's frustrating. I don't know.
Requires a market. Where there's demand, there will be supply, I guess.
And I guess I can't. I mean, I was one of those kids that was on LimeWire, like, stealing music when I was a kid. So it's like,
of course.
but
That model has changed now. Artists don't get paid based on sales of their music. They'll get cents on the dollar.
yeah,
They make their money. They get promotion through that, and then they make their money touring. And the live experience is awesome. And maybe art will move more towards that model. You know, the art concert, the
shows
That's
shows
what
are
we're doing,
cool.
basically. Like,
Trying to figure out that, I think that will be a big defining factor in the next couple of years about our industry. Is just how it's going to reach out to people, because I think, I've heard that galleries are suffering. I mean, the market's just down for all kinds of stuff. And it's like, man, it's not that people don't care or that it's just that it's changing somehow, and we're so overstimulated that we got to find a way of making it important somehow.
Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I don't think about it. But I need to.
That sounds hard.
It sounds really hard. But it's cool. When I was at the show in Billings, it was cool because my friend that's a gallery owner is 20-something too.
Wow, yeah.
And he has a gallery. It's just sells mostly his paintings, a couple of his buddies' work, but he's still like just making
retail
his
space downtown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with a studio bit in it, and he just like pays rent and does this and like paints like a maniac, and teamed up with Daniel Keys, who is a phenomenal freaking painter. He'll probably be one of like he's gonna be the Richie Schmidt of our kind of painting generation, the torchbearer for that high level of craftsmanship that's beyond most people's practicing. There's no way you can practice to his level. He's just one of those gifted kind of guys. But anyway, so he's teamed up with him, so they do workshops and do all this other great stuff there. But young people were hanging out at the gallery on the art walk.
Nice.
Like,
And buying work.
yeah, and they bought one of my studies, and like they're just there, like seriously into it. That was really cool to be like, no, like this in Montana of all places.
Right.
And
One of the biggest population centers, to be fair.
Billings is, yeah, but it's not like Portland or something where there's
Right.
millions of those people. Like there was, you know, it was just cool that there was that many people downtown. But most importantly, there were young people. We just don't have young people here in Kalispell.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just us,
pretty much.
and the other ones are out there four-wheeling and motorcycle riding.
Yeah.
And shooting guns.
Spending their money on toys.
Yeah.
Honestly. And that's fair.
It's fair, but one day they're gonna get bored with it and they're gonna buy so many paintings.
Yeah.
Probably have motorcycles. They're gonna switch genres. Start painting
Harley. No.
Harleys and dirt bikes.
Dirt bikes, yeah.
Well, Tyler Murphy has this alter ego called Bags of Monet, and he paints abstraction just doesn't care. He goes by his house paint, by the like spare paint gallons at like the.
Did you drip paintings or something?
You know, he does like geometric style stuff, and he does landscape inspired stuff, but it's just like, you know, just going nuts with the house brush on these things. And
Bags of Monet?
well, it's Monet, like
Right.
the French,
Yeah.
and I can't remember. It's like how the first part was spelled. It's not bags. It's like Abegs. Like I'll have to ask it. But it's like a bags of Monet, but it's his little like expression,
Yeah.
his alter ego in a different market. That's kind of like, man, that's kind of cool, because I like to do all kinds of different types of art that would make different marketing things, but this whole branding deal is like, if you're not careful, then
What's
you're just
your
gonna look cheap.
recognizable style?
Yeah, you just work long enough, then you'll be one of these artists that people just know for this, and then you'll be really rich and famous. And I don't know how that's going to change in our next, like, I feel like it's still running off of like the 80s art world scene, like where people had to go to galleries or they had to talk to somebody. Actually, somebody we met in Jackson, one gallery owner that was in there was like, things are changing a lot because instead of them having to talk to me about the artist, they can find it out on their own.
Yeah.
And like it makes it hard for you guys because there's no one actually protecting your reputation. They'll, you know, they can see if you're an idiot. They'll find out,
Right.
or you know, if you're cheap or if whatever. You know, like they'll look into those things and like that's a huge dynamic that's missing from the gallery scene.
Right.
Like there's no more mystique.
It's more
Artists are
it's more
just-
transparent
Right.
and less about the curators and the yeah, it's more direct relationship. But there's nothing you can do. You can't go back.
No, you can't go back. So but it's
return.
going to change. So it's going to be like, how is this
Yeah.
going to change? And how can I not starve to death? And more important, I guess, like how can I make my work important to people? Because that would be really the goal.
Yeah. Just show the camera quickly what Kenneth was working on. Just a few little fun studies. Looks like a river in between buttes, maybe.
I'm trying to simplify pine trees down because working with those simple geometric shapes is still like, I don't know, all those awesome artists were just like, okay, like you got to work with design. Josh Clare's another great landscape painter of our time anyway, and he just did a workshop and he talked to some of our friends on the trip that he's like, well, the main takeaway I had is that you could have almost everything else wrong in your painting, but if you have interesting value relationships and design, your painting's still going to be strong.
Right.
You can just get away with so much if value is interesting and like.
Absolutely.
That's cool, but it also scary because I feel like I don't know how to make it cool yet. I make it representational. I want to make it like fitting for whatever the scene is, but I really want to make it cool. And there's that watercolor artist Dean. He won a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Plein Air Convention.
Dean Mitchell?
Oh.
Dean Mitchell. And they did a huge slideshow of his work, and it was just it was so riveting. But he studied graphic design. Like that's really what he spent time studying. I think he has an eye for it automatically. But the way he could take these scenes and just focus on them to that graphic level makes them so gorgeous. That like when I look at like it'd be hard to take Glacier Park and just be like, I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff and just leave it white. Like Dean gets to like. I have to find my way of designing this to that level of beauty and that level of attention that's like so beautiful.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to put your finger on what makes them. That's why it's so hard to.
Well, it's cool talking. When he was talking about his paintings, you could see more of what it was like.
Okay.
Like when you just look at a painting, you're just confronted with everything in it.
Yeah.
But he's like, look, I like this painting, I like this. He's this really like sassy, hilarious black guy he grew up in like kind of a ghetto and. Just sounds like he had a rough go of it. And he made awesome from it, but he'd just be like, right, just that shape, that little tiny shape right there between their arms, like that's what did it. That's the purpose of the painting for me.
Negative space.
Yeah, he's like he was a huge negative space guy, or just like a texture, and that's all it took for him. And I feel like I get really convoluted, like especially when you take a photo, you're like, what am I supposed to focus on? What is it that I like about this? And I think if you take a picture of that, it's so stagnant that you don't get the courage to move it. And make it what you saw or what you really felt when you were drawn to that scene and made it important to other people. So I don't know, it was really cool. He brought up a lot of this design passion for me because I realized how weak I've been just making pretty pictures sometimes. Like, well, this is an awesome vista of Glacier Park. Like, I'm going to paint this, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shame in that. I agree, it's not the ticket to becoming respected and successful.
Yeah.
But it's practice. And if you can pull that off, you're a better artist than 99% of the people trying it out there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not bad, but it was definitely cool to be like, man, look what's possible. Like he took just like these urban grunge scenes and just like portraits that were so much more powerful with their like just the design.
So
like lots of people can
water
out
of an ugly scene is pretty impressive.
It's really cool.
I have no idea.
Now I'm trying to make pretty scenes more ugly and grungy, so I can just be as cool.
More grime.
Just add a bunch of skulls.
You're not in the right place, I guess, for that.
Yeah, I gotta figure out. But it was really cool to like another guy that was really convicting. That was Kurt Walters. Like he saw the Grand Canyon the first time and decided that was it for him. Like,
that's just
this is this is a place my heart's been needing.
Cool.
And he went and painted like a maniac there for years and years and years and became like everyone's kind of told him he's a weirdo. Because you just go out plein air paint constantly and do that, and sure enough, now he's winning all the Pre-West things and like kicking super butt.
But it probably took many years.
It took many years, and that was when he's like, he had kind of that like jaded feel when I talked to him, like he just had to do it the hard way. But I think it was really cool that he was there at this thing, giving such a huge speech, and everyone just ate it up, and they loved him. And it was really cool. I got to sit next to him for a while and talk to him, and just like, dang. You're in it for the real thing.
Yep.
I want to be like that, and I got to walk that walk, man. Which is value practice.
I really like the sky just as it is.
As it is.
I do, yeah. It looks, I don't know, it looks warm. It looks like it kind of could be.
It could. I'm gonna try to keep it so when I do the sky, I'm gonna keep a lot of yellow ochre in it actually, and try to keep it that warmth. I do gotta get a little bit of blue in it, but. Then that'll show
the
through
value
the
is
as well. But
pretty close.
See, and that's what I was saying. Like the value is exactly right.
Right.
So if you turn it black and white, it's already there. So I get the sky to be that.
Yeah.
That color and.
Awesome.
Yeah, dude, it's looking good.
All right. Well, we're running out of time.
Oh,
Thanks for being here, guys. It's a really good, interesting conversation about life on the road, and it did. And Richie's got a nice piece, maybe halfway done. already, which is pretty cool. It's not like it just takes an hour. It takes many years and studies and travel.
That's right.
There's a lot that goes into making something look that good.
Every painting that was before it, one of the things. I think I heard that before.
Yeah, it's like.
Yeah.
How long did it take you? It took me 26 years.
Yep.
Of drawing and suffering.
As long as you've been old, or as long as you've been alive.
Yeah.
And the amazing amazing images from all their travels will be shown. The paintings will be showing at Sundog Gallery in Bozeman some point this summer. No date yet, but we'll.
Hopefully sooner than later, just because
Yeah.
we'll get so busy doing other
He's
stuff.
putting the show up next month, so it's like a month thing. So it should be.
Okay.
If everything goes as planned, it should be next month.
Sundog Gallery in Bozeman. Check it out. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you in a couple weeks with a new guest. Hopefully.
Right on.
Bye.